Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's SOC Faculty Forum. My name is Laura DiNardis, the Associate Dean of Faculty Affairs, and it is a great pleasure to introduce my colleague, Kylos Brannon, a professor in the Film and Media Arts Division. He has actually been at American University for about a decade, so he's an old-timer, actually. He's an old-timer here. He is a video artist who specializes in live performance. He's going to be talking about some of his work today. Please join me in thanking him and welcoming him to today's Faculty Forum.
Thank you, everyone. I'm happy to be here today, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what I do as a live video artist, or a VJ, and how I got into it, and maybe a little bit about what it takes to make this sort of work, and then a little bit about my current endeavors into video installation and live performance in theater. So I've started out, basically, short story, I started out in clubs with DJs, and recently I've segued into galleries. But let me talk a little bit about what this is. This is me on stage, smiling for the camera. And what is the synesthetic experience? I'm going to assume maybe some of you have heard of the term synesthesia. I see nodding. It's basically when someone inadvertently crosses the senses. So you smell colors, or a certain piano key sounds blue. You know, colors is kind of the easy go-to to make the comparison, but your senses cross. Now, this as a term, synesthesia, I never ran across it until I started doing this sort of work around 10, 12 years ago, because the forums and resources I was going to online for VJs would tend to use these terms. There are certain people doing live video art who would talk about synesthesia, the synesthetic experience, and that feeds into my own research into video art, in that when those of us who are working live to create an entirely immersive live experience, we are crossing your senses for you. Someone is putting the audio out to you and making those decisions. I'm putting out video and making those decisions. Someone else is messing with the lights. And then let's say in some of these environments, you've also got smells, feelings, and maybe other influences going on in your existence in a party environment. So all these things come together to create a momentary crossover of the senses and a momentary experience. So that's what I'm talking about when I say a synesthetic experience. So there's a little bit of academics in this. So I sort of tripped backwards into this. That's me on stage over there. I can't walk past the red line. I'm right up there. This is the 930 Club right down the street, sort of. Short story, the origins. I was working in museums before I started here as a full-time professor, and I was doing work at the Smithsonian. I was a motion graphics artist, so I was working in exhibit media, which is a type of video art. I was working on multi-screen experiences, immersive theater. I think it all connects to where I went with this work, so there's a through line. And I'm at the Smithsonian, and I'm sitting across the table from an individual who's a historian there, historian at the time. And I realized he's a DJ that I had seen at the Black Cat the weekend before. His name is Will Eastman. He's now the owner of U Street Music Hall. Will's version of the story, and he likes to tell the same story, same day, sitting across the table from me, he goes, he realized that dude with the earrings and the black nail polish was at the Black Cat when he was DJing a few nights before. And that's the day we met. And fast forward a couple of years, I fell into possession of a projector, and I asked him if he wanted to have video at his dance nights. So that's just basically how it started. I would make DVDs that would loop, and every month I would just add some more stuff, just whatever came to mind for his dance nights. And one day someone asked me, you ever do this live? And I said, you can do this live? And he was like, yeah, my brother does it live, you should talk to him. So then I found out about various software and approaches to actually controlling video live on the fly. So I want to stress that the majority of the work I do, while I do prep elements in advance, it's all improvised. It's all in the moment. So it's live editing, it's live mashups, it's live effects. So something I like as a definition, I know it's Wikipedia, I'm sorry, but I really like the quote, is that a video installation, and I'm going to extrapolate that to pretty much all video art, the only requirements are electricity and darkness. And I like to add, and randomness. The randomness of what's going on in the moment and the environment you're in. It makes it a different experience than, let's say, going to the cinema. Because at least as much as we can as filmmakers, which I also do that too, but we want that environment sort of controlled. You're in the dark, you're sitting down. Maybe there's some other sensory input, like you're eating popcorn. But for the most part, we want you to hear it the way we wanted it. We want the sound mix the way we wanted it. We've color corrected it like crazy so that it looks exactly the way we wanted it, hopefully. And that experience is sort of controlled. When I do video art or live video art, there are other influences, there are other things going on. Besides the personal experiences someone might be having in the audience, there's randomness to what the DJs are going to choose. I'm following their narrative. So I make it up as they go. As they choose a song, I decide to do something. In addition to that, I don't control the lights. There's a guy in the club, or a girl in the club, or a person in the club controlling the lights. So there's or a smoke machine, or the strobes, or darkness, whatever. So these things become a random part of the experience that all edit together in the moment for the audience. So just to mention a little bit of history here for me, it's been, I think I'm counting almost 12 years, but it would say 10 years on. My longest running performance nights or DJ nights have been Bliss, is where it started with DJ Will Eastman at the Black Cat, and it moved to U Street Music Hall. Right Round with DJ Lil E, which was still at the Black Cat. I no longer perform at that night because time is a commodity and we all run out of it. And then No Scrubs and Hot in Here, which is two versions of the same theme night, we'll say. It's the same DJs and me, and sort of booked in succession. It started in 2009, and it's still going at 930 Club and 7 other East Coast venues. So we do travel around a little bit. I can brag that it is one of the longest running consecutive sold out acts at the 930 Club. So I'll go ahead and say that. So to tell you what they are, the most popular nights are theme nights, or nostalgia. Nostalgia's a moneymaker, guys. Right Round is an 80s night, No Scrubs is a 90s night, Hot in Here is a 2000s night. Oh, wait. Wait till I announce my new night. Then you're gonna feel old. Some highlights also. One time, I VJ'd with Moby for President Obama's 930 Club inauguration ball, his first inauguration. That's Moby, and behind him is stuff I'm doing with graphics his people gave me. I was told I was not allowed to be on stage with Moby. I wasn't allowed to meet Moby. I wasn't allowed to be on his side of the dressing room. And I could tell that when he walked out on stage, he had no idea that someone was going to be doing that. Like, he looked up, saw pictures of himself, and kind of went, like, all right. The other funny story is we blew the block out. I like to blame us. I don't know what else was going on that night, but blackout. Whole block around 930 Club. Moby and Will did a drum circle with garbage cans for a little while. Someone say they were there? Who said that? Somebody said it, and they're hiding. Okay, fine. And then another highlight that I should mention is I used my screen at the Black Cat to propose to my fiance. So in front of about 500 people, I asked her up on stage, and I pointed at the screen and let it talk to her, and I gave her a ring, and everybody rejoiced. There's a video about it that I couldn't find to bring today, so I found one of the Facebook photos of it. But these are two of the DJs I work with frequently. Behind them, some stuff I'm making. This is me on stage, a little bit of nightlight photography from Brightest Young Things. So what do I do? Okay, so I'm up there and I'm making magical video happen and people are dancing and having a great old time. People will ask me, so what you have up there, how do you make it live? And I'm like, well, some of it is 100% soup to nuts improvised, all on the fly. And depending on time or interest, I can show you what I do with the program at the end. But I do prep things too in advance so that I have some prepared material to bring in. So I have a variety of stuff that I can do. So I thought I'd show you a couple examples of kind of the mashup collage style that I'll go for. One is get ready for a whole lot of nostalgia stuck in your eyeballs over here for the 90s. And then this is some original animations of my own. So I might let this play for a moment. There will be, I apologize, some of this stuff there will be no audio because I'm not the DJ. I'll tell you the origin. There's a story behind that in just a moment. But so this is a little long, 3 minutes long. But, so I'll take all kinds of things from whatever decade we're playing or whatever topic, because it's not just, I don't only do theme nights that are, nostalgic to certain decades or eras, but I will take a variety of stuff. These are music videos, commercials, excerpts from television shows and movies. The TV effect and the flashing, that's something I added in. So it's basically a mashup representing that decade in some way, shape, or form. And I'll have this so that, in case I need a moment or I'm looking for something, or I notice the DJ is going to play a song I don't have, I actually will try to download it on the fly and do the music, something to that song. Like I would try to grab the music video while I'm on stage through the Wi-Fi. So this is spanning the 90s. I see people reacting to certain clips, which is good, because that's what I'm looking for. And get a little bit of remembrance to things. And, everybody loves Baywatch, right? So that gives you a little bit of idea of what I might prep in advance and bring in as we go. The stuff that's more original, this will have some sound. The first portion of this, I probably will cut it off because it starts to degenerate into Japanese game shows, is original animations that I use for some electro nights. So this is stuff that I will go out and shoot or animate myself in advance. So photos of me. This is an original animation playing around with old 80s video games. This is just stock imagery. And that's the Japanese game shows. So we're going to get away from that. There's a mix of stuff I will bring in. I have folders full of clips, TV shows, music videos, plus these mashups I create. What it looks like on the fly, and these are pieces of an installation I did for a new media exhibit about 8 years ago that showed how my work is layered, mixed with shots of the crowds that I play to. So I just brought in examples of how it looks when I add it, we'll say compile it together. So I usually won't let all this happen on screen. This is what I'm seeing before I get to the end result and put it on screen. But this is all done in the moment on my computer. I just recorded this to be able to show someone putting it together. Now these two are all stock footage or sourced from archival resources or forums where VJs share their stuff with each other. So actually some of these clips that I've made, oh, that's my screen. That's on the wall at the Black Cat. So some of the clips I've made, I will put back on those forums and other people will grab them and use them in their performances. And it's a lot of, there's a couple specific VJ forums and resources to go to, but then there's also artists who will go to and just put everything that they have on Vimeo or YouTube and be like, take it, make something else with it, you know? So it's a small but global community that's usually very sharing. So, I'm going to move away from the dance portion of the evening, but just to let you know, in case you want to come dance, and I don't know if anyone recognizes AU Prof. Emily Blout here. Her and her husband are based in Charlottesville. He's the mayor. We had them up on stage with us one night. It was a lot of fun. But upcoming gigs. And I'm actually doing this to make you feel old, because tomorrow night we're in Charlottesville, then December we have a few dates in 930 Club, January and February in Baltimore. But first time ever, December 29th, Can't Feel My Face, 2010 party. The nostalgia creeps up on you quick, kids. So it's moving along. I have to admit, I have no idea what songs are going to be played at that. I'm completely out of the loop. I told my DJs, you got to send me a list. I do not know. So if you want to come out right before New Year's and not feel your face, we'll be doing our first ever 2010s party, even though we're not out of that decade yet, but we started our 2000s party before we were done with that decade. Anyway, okay, so beyond the club. So I do this for about a decade, give or take, a little bit more, a little bit less, whatever. And, you know, it's nice, and I get these gigs, and, you know, as much as I can fit them into my calendar, and they're fun and they're great, and I really, really love the improvisational element. I like to walk right in, hook my stuff up in the club, know I've got a ton of things in a folder, and I'm just gonna make this in the moment and walk away. I actually really like that element of it. I'm not creating a product. I don't have to promote it after the fact. I'm not distributing anything. I try to remember things I do that I think work and do them again, but I probably don't do them the exact same. So there's this variety and etherealness, I guess, temporariness. That's not really a word, but you get what I'm saying. Anyway, but I do this for a while, and I start to get, you know, I start to think, what could I be doing with this work, with this approach that isn't doing mashups of Britney Spears and Jay-Z to a bunch of drunk people, to be flippant about it. I don't want to make it sound that reductive, but you know. So in the last couple of years, I've tried to take these skills in some other directions. So the most recent ones are some installations and immersive experiences for Little Salon DC, a performance piece at Source Festival DC, and a month-long installation gallery exhibit at the Anacostia Art Center. Now, I want to keep in mind that to me, there's a through line here. I started off doing exhibit media in museums. I figured out how I took those skills, added in a live component, oddly enough, teamed with a DJ who was a historian with me in the Smithsonian, and now I'm coming back to environments that are kind of like immersive theater events and installations, exhibits, right? So to me, it's all part of the same soup. And these are various stills from these things. I'll explain them in a moment. All right, so the first thing I did was Awake Again, which was Little Salon DC, April 2006. And Awake Again, designed by two friends of mine, who became friends of mine. I was hooked up with them because they were looking for video artists to participate in this. If you don't know Little Salon DC, you should look it up. I'll tell you about them in just a moment because it relates to what happens. Little Salon DC is an organization that takes over a temporary space once a month. Usually it's a donated house or apartment, and puts on a one-night art event. So they may, and it's a variety of artists that they bring together. So they may have, the last time I did an installation with them, I did an installation in the basement. They had a bluegrass band and a poet and I think a craft cocktail person. And then my installation downstairs. And everybody does their thing and then talks about it. So I've also been to one where actually a friend of mine who is part of a duet with a cello, they did their thing, and then there was someone read a chapter from their novel, which was an autobiography of their time in DC as a cop, and then other, artists. So it could be a variety. You don't really, it's not the same type of people every time. But one time they took over this house in Petworth, and Every room was a different experience, and it was all one walk-through immersive experience. It was partially inspired by Sleep No More, if anyone's familiar with that. If you aren't, that's cool. I'll describe this. So the audience was brought in, and then every room they went to was themed around a different season with different artists in there. And the seasons corresponded to different points in a person's life. Now, I designed 4 video projections to go on in these spaces. So I don't really have footage of it that would justify it, but I have this one sheet I put together. So just to let you know, in the spring room here, I projected video up from a crib, and it was all about birth and being an infant, and there was a woman there reading from a children's book she wrote. And then there was, in the spring room, which I had a very sort of off to the side video, there's no picture of it, was a poet, and she was reciting elements from her journal, and it was all about sexual awakening and adolescence, and her and another woman were under the covers in a bed while they recited it. Journal pages strewn across the floor. And then the next room was the autumn room with that dancer, that screen, me, and an audio artist. And that's me with a mustache, in case you've never seen that before. That room was the most interesting room for me. So what I did in there, I really enjoyed this because it was very different for me, was the audience would come in and they would choose an article of clothing, give it to the interpretive dancer, and she had a different dance designed for each piece of clothing. The autumn room was about jobs and life and careers. So she had like a lab coat, military jacket, a barista apron, and I think just like a business suit. So whatever the audience would hand her, she would do a different dance. The audio designer had a different soundscape for each one, and I had like 15 to 20 clips related to that topic that I would mix something live and just put it up there. So again, this starts to relate to that, to me, that randomness, that synesthetic experience, that these things are being mixed together in the moment. And every group that came through, I think we had somewhere around 80 people go through that night in groups of like 10-ish. Every group would have a completely different experience. And sometimes the dancer would, like if she got the same thing by another group, she'd go, and they'd have to pick something else. So we'd go through all that. The final room here was the death room, which was a bathroom, and that was winter. And you can't really tell, but there's a mannequin under a sheet in the bathtub, and I projected winterscapes onto that. And then there was a violinist in the shower. The shower wasn't running. But so this was my first endeavor into kind of a real immersive, transformative experience that it had, let's say, a little bit more of a narrative to it in a structured sort of way. And it was taking exactly what I actually do with DJs and applying it to a different situation. Every piece of equipment and the same programs are exactly what I used in that room with the dancer. So it fundamentally was not really any different on my side. It's just the purpose and what happens in the end. Fast forward a little bit, and I do have a clip or two from this to show you, to Forgetting is Normal, which was a month-long exhibit at the Anacostia Art Center. 3 screens, although they're all the same video loop. 13 minutes. And this is an installation. I was approached by a woman from the Anacostia Art Center to come up with something. And I was like, wow, I'm going to try to come up with something that has a concept. So what Forgetting is Normal does is sort of my first endeavor into mixing video art with some sort of scientific exploration, academic exploration. I mined my own memories for childhood stories, and I would illustrate them through video collages. I recorded myself reciting them, and then juxtapose that against sequences about how the brain forgets and how the brain remembers. So it jumps between these two things over and over again. And I have some examples to kind of give you what I'm talking about. But so I wrote a script, and I put some things together, and it talks. Some of it's a little bit. I realized after the fact, and my fiance brought this up because she recorded the scientific voice for me. She's a much better voiceover artist than I am. But she was like, this is really like melancholy and kind of cynical. And I was like, was it? I thought I was being funny. She was like, so I don't know where I'm at, but so this, I mean, I'm going to show it to you. But it's also, I think, something that I'm continuing to work on and play with, this idea of, you know, how our brains operate, how our brains remember things, how our brains process things. And especially, like, the process of forgetting is interesting because it does it on its own. Your brain right now is deciding things for you. You will not remember all of this today. What you'll remember is the thing you laughed at because your brain will remember laughing. And that's actually related to, and there's a clip on this here, is that one of the things I learned, through a line, one of the things I learned is that often what the brain does is it remembers things based upon what it can relate it to. The other senses influencing the moment that you're remembering through this sense. So, back to my title, the synesthetic experience, I started to think about, oh, well, if we're creating these moments for people, whether it's electricity and darkness and lights and randomness, but everything's coming together, they heard that song they really remember, and they saw that thing with a nostalgic, you know, clip from 90210 or whatever, or, you know, these things come together, these senses come together, and that creates the memory. So here, let me show you a little bit of what these are. So here's two sequences. About 2 minutes.
The brain gives the impression of being symmetrical, but it isn't. Looking quickly implies a symmetry, but each side is an imperfect reflection of the other, essential to adaptability and function. Remembering is imperfect. Memories are an asymmetrical reflection of reality. Forgetting is normal. Remember is a nearly symmetrical word, one letter preventing it from being a palindrome pronounced remember. Like a child might say, I remember, I remember. Forgetting is normal.
Those are the coal hills outside of my hometown, by the way. Carbondale, Pennsylvania, an asymmetrical coal town that has been forgetting itself for years. Post-industrial, after coal, abandoned by trains, emptied factories. It deteriorates at the edges like a memory fraying on the landscape of the country's history. It's 1977 and I'm born there. February 19th. It's sunny and nice out. The next day is a blizzard. My cousin drives my father to visit me and my mother in the hospital, fighting the Poconos winter. I spend the next 18 years positive that I will leave. Now I cannot remember names of streets, half my high school class, or exactly what order of life took place in there.
A baby is born with nearly all the neurons it will ever have. The brain increases in size, achieving 80% of its ultimate size by age 3. Synapses form at a faster rate. The brain creates more than it needs, twice as many as it will have as an adult. Extra connections are discarded through a process called blooming and pruning. Is it losing potential as it gains memories? Life is a series of eliminations and discards, rather than building and construction.
So, actually, what my fiance is, the scientific voice, she's playing that role. So the scientific voice is, I would say, a poetic interpretation of the science. I want to make sure I make that distinction because although I did my research, I don't want to claim that I'm an expert in this. So I tried my best to take the research, the science, or some of the theory and be interpretive about it so that it's, you know, has a little bit of freedom. And also maybe it's a little bit more interesting to listen to. So it's also, and this is another short clip, it's only a minute and a half, exploring these things, I got to go back and look at my own origins, in a sense. Now, I don't have a clip of this, but one thing that was really fun to do is I called up my parents and I said, could they take cell phone pictures of the first roll of film I ever shot? I was 4. And it turned out that one story I wanted to tell was me, this is just a fun coincidence, I would walk downtown with my father to get donuts, and he would buy me a comic book. Now, anyone who knows me knows that I read comic books like it's my job. So I've been reading comic books since I was like 3 or 4. But in my story about my dad walking me downtown to buy a comic book, I talk about the first comic book I ever have from the year that it came out, and it turned out that was from 1981, and this roll of film was from 1981. And I just like to think in my brain that all this happened at the exact same time. It's coming back to me in the same way. I don't have the piece with the roll of film here because I chose another piece, but there's a reason I brought that up, is that combing through these memories, I began to revisit and sort of think about what led me to where I'm at. And I'm sure you'll see where I'm going here. And it's only a minute.
The
so I think we have
hippocampus
time.
is responsible for your memories. It is the gateway and the retrieval. Positioned at the bottom of the brain, between the ears, behind the eyes and nose, gathering input. Making decisions about what is stored. A tiny office of bureaucracy, satisfying your requests for recollection or turning them down. When a new memory is formed, there is a dopamine-based forgetting mechanism that erases memories unless some importance is attached to them. The brain is choosing to actively forget. You may regret that later.
Dad brings a 16mm projector from work. He projects movies onto a white sheet of paper on the living room wall. He watches Fellini. For me, he projects The Red Balloon and The Hobbit.
True, that's true. He would put paper up on the wall, and he'd bring over these reels of film that he worked at a Votech high school, and he would just order them like you would order any movie to show in a class. And he would show them at home, and he'd bring me home things like cartoons and The Hobbit and The Red Balloon, but I would also sometimes sit there and he'd be watching something else. So, obviously, looking back on that, I can think about certain things going on in my life and my interests, my studies, my classes, and see which, kind of led me to where I ended up. What was that? Okay, that was Forgetting is Normal, which still exists. It was part of the exhibit at IDMA, the International Digital Media Artists Association, which was right over here at UDC this year. So I had it as a little screen piece, a part of a larger exhibit, and I've been submitting it to other stuff. So it still has a life, and I still have parts of the script I decided never to illustrate, or parts of what was done in the end that I'm not really happy with. So we'll see if, it will probably take on different life every time I decide, or every time it's accepted and I can exhibit it. So let's see where we're at. Okay, Exquisite Depths, which was really, really cool and interesting, and I want to do more like this. So this was a theater experience with Source Festival DC. And this incorporated live actors. I had two collaborators, one a writer, one a director. Neither of them actors, actually, but this is the way it shook out. And the concept is sort of a metaphysical exploration of identity, self, and in a lightweight trauma, in that we had a character here who approaches a doctor of sorts and starts to explore parts of her life and her past, but in mostly a kind of metaphorical way, not in a literal way. And as she talks about these things, as she's interviewed about it, as she's asked questions, the video collage, the video collage would reflect her exploration. And it was all mixing of cosmos footage and like cosmic bodies, solar flares and black holes with deep sea exploration. So the idea of the depths of the psyche and of people's past. So in addition to that, there was a number of other things depending on the part of the script we were at. You'll see some footage of this actually, because I do have a trailer. But we managed to take what they do and what I do and elevate it a little bit more than I had in the past, in that, well, first of all, I had to follow a script. So while I was still doing this live, some of this improvisation, while every experience would be different, of course, it was a little bit more like playing an instrument, or something like that, because I had to be on time, and I had to know what thing I was about to play. And I had to prepare a file in a way I never did before, so that the pieces were ready to go at the moment someone said whichever line corresponded to that part, or where the soundtrack hit a certain point. And then there were also parts where I just completely improvised to the soundtrack, because the character was sort of letting us into her psyche and just letting that go. We wouldn't say anything, it would just be the video. So we had 3 screens in all. We had the screen right behind them, we had the screen off to the side, and then a little tiny one that she would trigger sometimes by taking a cover off it. In addition to that, 2 other things were added in that made it, for me, a bit more of a challenge and a bit more interesting. One was, you can see right here, the character suddenly appears on screen and talks to herself. And that was, I actually had to do that. I recorded it, and had the character talk to herself, and it represented a dissociative moment, and the character would actually be having this representational dissociative moment with herself, and then the screen version would take over and talk for her. The other element we entered into, and this is great because this is an element of randomness I never experienced before. Before the audience came in, they had to fill out a sheet of paper that said, when I was blank, I realized that blank. And they passed them up to the doctor. At a certain point in the performance, the character who's going through the self-exploration gets a cue and says something along those lines. And then the doctor would start passing out these papers randomly to audience members who were meant to trigger back to her these memories. And the memories were contributed by those in the audience. Some people gave us some stuff that we did not expect, in like really serious things, really like life-changing, deep, serious things. Other things were sort of flippant and fun and witty. You know, somebody wants to be witty, that's cool. But someone else, like let's say, if Lena, you had written down something, but it was passed back to Sharon, you would say what Lena wrote down. So you'd hear someone else say your memories and your background, or your thing, your secret, right? And in this process, our main character was shedding these pieces of material that were just like attached and threaded through her dress, and that meant she was sort of using this moment to let go and move on. And so I had, various collage things that I would do, giant eye looking back at people while they said this stuff. But this was actually based in amount in the work of Brené Brown, if anyone is familiar with her. And I would have to say I was introduced to her work through this. So I don't want to claim to be an expert, but if I can paraphrase, and I see Bridget, you're nodding, so correct me if I'm wrong, but if I can sort of distill this down, the idea of vulnerability and shared shame, or hearing others' experiences and shame or secrets help you process yours. Sound about right? Oh, I'm sorry, you're not, I thought maybe you knew. No. Sure, okay, so I mean, her TED Talks are great. I just don't want to speak for her and get it wrong. I'm always self-conscious about that. But this was part of the background to how we were putting this together. Because, yeah, it's a cool, fun, immersive theater thing. It's audience participation, try the feel. But on top of that, it's this sort of, there's a little bit of a social experience that is a release that this was representing. Now, again, since it's a live video experience and a live acting experience, I don't have a way for you to experience it, but I do have here today a trailer we use to advertise it online that incorporates a taste of the type of video collage I put into it.
When I was a supernova, I realized most people don't live their life in bursts of light and heat. Most people just float. Even the night sky conceals a tendency toward self-destruction, heavy elements that combust with no warning. I'm an unreliable narrator. I try to tell myself my own stories as they should be experienced and not as they are. Like every living thing, you're a composite of layers: brightness, darkness, and self. Speaking in metaphor is a way to address what you're not ready to confront directly. When I leave a place behind, I place it in an apothecary jar. My mind is a row of shelves with jars labeled, "The year I kept too many secrets," "The year I should have left sooner," "The year that was actually pretty great."
So that's some of the footage that I collaged into that piece. Not all of it, not every piece of it, but just a little taste of kind of where we're going for. How do I make this stuff? I'm stealing from my fiance here. She's like, "Oh, well, I'm going to come and see you art tonight. Are you arting tonight?" So just to let you know, because these are sometimes the questions I get, is how do I get to my footage? Well, there's a variety of resources I go to, but I have one reliable piece of program, a piece of software that I used to download off of Vimeo, YouTube, and others, which is called 4K Downloader. It's free. I prep things using Photoshop, After Effects, and Premiere. More After Effects and Premiere because the majority of the stuff I'm putting together is video, but I do, Photoshop is sort of like, kind of my favorite thing to mess around with. And my live software is called, it's Modulate. Modulate operates sort of somewhere between an editing program, a DJ program, and After Effects or Photoshop. And just to show you the interface, this is what I see on my screen when I'm working. And since we're in a film school, a media school, and I figure some of you might be curious, now, what is he doing up there? These are my feeds out. So group A and group B, and I can have up to 5 different layers of video or photos in that group. So what I create is a looping experience layered up to 5 streams together in one output. And then with this slider, I can switch to group B. In addition to that, group A has 8 different comps, and group B has 8 different comps. So I can have up to 16 different compositions going on at one time that I switch between. But I choose what goes into these layers as I go. Just to mention saturation, lightness, contrast, the luma key, so the transparency. I can randomize certain movements. I can change its size. I can change its speed. I can speed it up. I can slow it down. I can scrub it like a DJ does, move back and forth real fast. I can set its in and outs. And I also have mapped a lot of what's up there to a MIDI controller and to my keyboard. So I'm usually sliding and hitting keys all at the same time. So that's kind of just a little bit behind the scenes. Also to say that I really do it live. There's a control for that. It's pretty intense. It's crazy. There's stuff you can do in this that I still haven't gotten to try out because, I don't know, some of you might be familiar with this. Once you have a certain toolbox that you find works for you, you tend to go back to it until the moment somebody goes, "I really need you to do this thing." You're like, "Oh, I better figure out how to do that thing." This is the software I use. The last thing I'll mention, and then I'll go to questions because we actually did take about as long as I thought it would. Just to let you know, my 2 biggest influences in how I approach this work are probably Namjoon Paik, who you may be familiar with. We can see his stuff downtown at no. Oh, maybe there's multiple locations. The one I was trying to think of was the American Art Museum. Okay. Okay, there's a piece there for sure too. And then also Jeremy Blake, who I don't know if anyone's familiar with him or not, but I saw a posthumous exhibit of his at the Corcoran back when we had the Corcoran years ago. And I just sat in the dark watching his stuff for like 3 hours. I was so blown away by it. And I really feel like the way Like Namjoon Pike does installation stuff that I just haven't touched on yet because he giant, towers of video and stuff. But the way they both incorporate pop culture and highbrow and lowbrow together really appeals to me. So that's sort of where I think some of my stuff exists. Anyway, that takes us to 20 after. So I think now I'll say, do you have any questions? Lena.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the use of using other people's videos in
Sure.
public performances.
Yeah.
Like what kinds of, sorry, about the use of appropriating other people's
Yeah, I
footage
think-
in live performances where people pay money to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I mean, a blanket statement, the simple, easiest way for me to say this is I do what the DJ does, but I do it with video. So that's like one real easy go-to statement. The more complicated statement is I've read through the practices of fair use from CSMI, CMSI? CSMI? I'm sorry. My brain. Right, yes. I do things backwards. But I've read through the fair use for both documentarians, art, and mashups. And I feel like depending on what I'm working on, my work falls into one of three of these. The other thing is I'm not making, let me wind myself back just for a moment. The in-the-moment experience, for the most part, I believe is an appropriation and evolution for a purpose, and it's transformative of the media, and it's transformative experience for the audience, and I'm being paid, this is true, and it's part of it, I'm being paid for the skill I have at it, not for the product I'm making. And I'm not selling what I make in the end. So I think that's an important thing to mention. Bless you. The other thing is I'm not commenting on this stuff in a negative way, and I'm never trying to. So I think that's also important when you're appropriating work, is that if you're making a transformative piece out of it and a one-time experience that might speak to the audience or speak to the narrative of the night, is not creating a negative impact on the original work. And that's not built into the fair use, but I feel like that's an ethos thing.
Have you been sued?
No.
There you go.
There we go. But yes, I think it falls, depending on which piece we're talking about, which experience, there's 3 documents up there now that I've read through all 3 of them, and I think that I fall under those. Yeah, Maggie.
It's just so wonderful to see your work. You work
Thank you.
with someone over the years, but to be able to see all your work and hear you talk about it is really fantastic. And the word that occurred to me when you were talking about your video VJing is ephemeral art. And I wondered if you had thought about how you might have been influenced by ephemeral artists, or if you view your work as ephemeral, and whether or not the vibe in the room influences your psychology or approach about what you're choosing to put up there. So kind of 2 questions.
Okay, sure. I have to say that I don't have an enormous amount of background in ephemeral art, although I, in more recent years, have sought out experiences that are kind of like a one-time momentary experience and it goes away. Like I went up to an Atlas Obscura event in Brooklyn in October where they took over a large cemetery, and there were different stations all throughout the cemetery with different artists doing different things, and each was a different experience. And there was bands, and there was performance, and there was seances, and then there was just like lighting experiences, all kinds of different stuff. And if you don't go that night, it's gone, right? So I think there's something to that. I guess for me, that's built into theater. Because even though you have a script and even though you have everything and you rehearse it, and I did theater for years before I got into film. I directed probably 20 to 30 plays, half of them my own, before I got out of college. And it wasn't something I majored in, it was just something I was always doing. And to me, those experiences, in a sense, it's just this one-time thing and then it's over. And you're never gonna have the exact thing again. And I'm sorry, what was the second half? Oh, the vibe of the room, the vibe of the room. Yes, the vibe of the room is always part of it. It really, really is. And it's collaborative because it's not like I decide everything that's going to happen to affect that vibe. But, if the audience isn't we'll say they're not quite into it yet, or we need to kind of pump them up. I'll follow the lead of the DJ, but I'll see that, okay, we got to come up with something that's going to be a little bit more enticing. I might try to, actually, that's when I might do something on screen that's clearer and easy to catch your eye, just to get an attention. So I might go to something that I know that's going to play really well with the audience, or maybe get a smile. And so I may not, actually, in that sense, I may not follow the song. I might go, well, we're doing, a 90s night, everybody loves whatever. So I'll try to get them going. So in that sense, yes, the vibe of the room definitely affects what we're doing and how we're going. I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
So tagging from that, why not record it and let others who maybe don't go to clubs see this as well? And then the second question is, how much of this do you teach in class or use elements in class, either conceptually or practically?
Okay. Well, first of all, its purpose is not to be recorded and experienced outside of like that environment. Same with like the theater piece. I think that any of these, they don't function without the room that they're meant to be in and the moment that they happen. So I would tend not to record any of them, actually, even the theater piece, and have people experience it outside of that space. I think it's space specific, and that's a lowercase, I'm in Baltimore at one club, I'm at the Black Cat, and then I'm at 930 Club, and that space specific is just, that's what that is. But in other cases, like the theater piece, we designed what we were doing in the room they gave us. The objection to recording it? Yeah. Well, I think that it needs to be a live thing. And I guess that's just philosophically for me, it needs to be a live experience. And that's not even stepping towards the copyright stuff. But I think it needs to be a live experience. Class-wise, well, I do teach radical image, so I will talk about what I do a little bit when we do video art day. I don't teach live video art or performance in any classes, although I'd love to do a workshop or something like that sometime. And the film fraternity that I advised, DKA, sort of set up a real short one where I just demonstrated the software last year, and that was really fun. We had about 15 students, and they were very excited just to see how I put it together. But it would be cool to do like a 3-day thing where I taught maybe one of the cheaper softwares or tried to find something free, and people came up with a concept and did 15-minute performances. But I've never had really the opportunity to do something quite like that. As far as improvising what you do with media, I feel like that's a constant in my life. And even when I'm in class, I will sometimes be like, oh, let me pull this thing up instead, and let me show you that thing instead, and let me skip over here. And I'm hoping a couple of my students agree that that's probably what I'm doing sometimes. Any other questions? Yeah.
Kylos, hi. Thanks so much for your presentation. Really interesting topic. So much of your work is really focused on improvisation, like you said. What if you have a request, let's say, a client approaches you with a topic you're not familiar with? How do you prepare for your work? If much of your work is improvisation, how do you gather that information? Is there a group of colleagues, if you will, VJs, that you can tap into in advance to research?
Well, my approach, I mean, there is a group of VJs online, and I do know another one in town that I can communicate with and bounce ideas off of, or go see what other people are doing in certain forums. But as far as like having a client come to me, I guess the closest I could come to with that is like certain EDM nights that are electronic dance music stuff that I just don't really know. Or now we're going to enter into this 2010s night that I don't have background for. I don't need to know the content to work with the beat, edit the visuals, and play with color theory. So like as long as I have the resources, because I know these things are go-tos that work on screen, and I can hear the beat and I just tap it out. So it's really just a matter of going, give me a list of the material I need and make sure I can look at your screen as to what's coming up next. And then I'll just follow them, at least in these dance nights sort of way. And let me end with one quick story. The second, I'll tell you guys the most frequent conversation I've had in my life is the second title to this, I'm Not the DJ. So here's how the conversation goes. Someone's in front of the stage and they're trying to get everyone's attention, and we try to ignore them, but eventually somehow they catch my eye or they do something that makes me go, fine. And I walk over to them and they go, can you play this? And I go, I'm not the DJ. Can you play this? I'm not the DJ. What? I do that, they do this. Like, oh, can you tell them to play this? No, they don't take requests. And then the rest of the conversation, there's a various routes that can go, but that's a conversation I've had more in my life than any other, and it is exactly that, over and over and over again. All right.
Okay, well, that was absolutely wonderful. Thank you,
you.
Professor Kylos Brannon. Wow.
Have some refreshments.
We do have some refreshments outside. I hope that you'll join us. And I just want to take a moment to thank all of our team that makes this happen. It's too many people to enumerate, but if you look around at all of the cameras and you look at our online,
Yes.
Jeffrey Madison
Good
and his
job.
team, thank you so much. And I will just close by saying he is not the DJ.
Not doing the music, man.